music makes me want to lay down and let Daryl do all the talking. But I guess I won't. We'll introduce him anyway, and then I would go to sleep, but he's pretty entertaining guy, so I won't go to sleep. But welcome back to the Educated Retirement here on your earthly AM radio. Listen to me. Go AM radio station, KMET 1490, and also broadcast universe-wide on the internet, video podcast, audio podcast, everything. So remember, the off-air number, 866-955-2233, and that's enough of me for right now. I'm going to introduce Daryl, and the first thing we'll do is have Daryl tell us about himself. And if we have any time after that, we'll go a little further. So go ahead, Daryl.
That was pretty funny, Jay. I find great humor in that.
Yes, you and nobody else, but thank you.
My name is Daryl McCants. I've been in the real estate industry for 4 decades. Mm-hmm. And I've had the opportunity to look at many appraisals by the thousands. So you and I are going to talk about property values today, if that's okay with you, Jay.
I think property values are a good subject, actually in 2 different ways. The values, the straightforward values, and then of course we don't lose sight of the value of having property also. So value is such a huge part of ownership.
I would propose that we talk about values,
mm-hmm.
and share with the folks information that it would have been nice if somebody would have told us these things long ago, and kind of frame it from that perspective. But anyway, again, my name is Daryl McCants. I'm a broker. I've had the pleasure of representing some of the top banks in the nation, and have reviewed many properties and thousands of appraisals. And as we talked earlier, Jay, most properties that people enjoy every day fall in 3 basic groups: either a single family home, a condominium, or the middle ground is something that we in the business refer to as a PUD, or a planned unit development.
Or a PUD.
Or a PUD. Or,
yeah.
Or if you want to call them a PUG, Jay.
Yeah. No, that's me. Yeah. But yeah.
So in that context, shall we start with the single family homes?
That's what you live in, right? And a beautiful one at that.
Yeah, I live in the historic Claremont, California, a little city in Los Angeles County, tucked away next to a large number of private colleges, the Claremont colleges, as they're called. So with single family homes, there's 3 things, but most folks that are listening right now, there's really one thing that you can do easily, one thing that's a little more difficult, and then the third one you can't really do anything about it. So the 3 categories are: where is it, what is it, and the condition. Those are 3 critical things, even though we've all heard the joke, it's location.
Yeah, but
the truth is it's really location, what is it, and the condition of it. So you want to talk about that for a minute, Jay?
Absolutely.
Okay. So where is it? We'll assume that somebody has already purchased a single family home. So location is, I think everybody pretty much understands that whole equation. But what is it? A lot of times there's opportunities where, in the future, people can do room additions. They can improve the kitchens. They can make nice improvements. They can have a very substantial effect on everyday living, not to mention the value because we're talking about values today.
Mm-hmm.
And the third thing that I think is really, really misunderstood is the condition. And I've gone into property after property that's being offered for sale. Right now, with the interest rates coming down, a lot of people are refinancing.
As they should.
As they
or
should.
be looking. If they were going to move anyway, this is the time.
Right, and that's what you're particularly qualified to do, Jay. So they should look no further than you for assistance in that regard. But with the respect to value, it is very important. On every appraisal, there is a item called condition, and before anybody ever walks into a home, it should be clean as a whistle. It should be uncluttered. That's a no-brainer. And then in addition to that, oftentimes touching up paint, making sure that the flooring's looking sharp would be the next category. And then the third category is whatever's in the budget. But that condition rating, hundreds of dollars, can positively affect a property owner by many thousands of dollars and potentially tens of thousands.
Yeah, and we're not just talking about value for someone purchasing the home. I've seen these things as condition. I mean, I've seen condition make huge swings in the value according to an appraiser.
Correct. And the appraiser has to make a determination on condition. And that valuation, it's sad to me to see the condition of a property dropped because of clutter or things that can be easily resolved. You know, it's one thing if the condition rating is lowered because of a roof that's in poor condition.
Yeah.
That's an expensive item. Everybody understands that may or may not be in the budget. But to have a sink full of dishes and clutter and, you know, things in disarray, you know, could have an effect.
I didn't know you've been over to my house lately.
Jay, I didn't want to bring your house up.
Okay.
But certainly it is an example of something that you could, you can make some positive changes over there.
Yeah. Yes.
So condition to me is something that's very, very important. Before an appraiser comes out, in the case of a refinance or any potential buyer comes in, have the property looking great, because one, it's going to help you get a better value, higher value.
Right.
And also your house is going to look really good compared to other homes that people have looked at or the appraisers have looked at, because people generally are keeping their homes in much poorer condition than they did 15 years ago.
Yeah, you've got so many cases where both parents are working.
Yep.
Plus there's kids hanging around, and if you live in the property, not that you're, not that you are a mess in your mind or whatever, but you get used to things and you don't see these changes.
Correct. So,
I mean, that's why I don't have any mirrors in this house, so I don't see myself.
Yeah, and the average commute time to work is getting longer and longer. So I get it that
exactly.
And your house doesn't have to look like this every day of the year. It's just when there's going to be an important inspection that takes place. And the old saying, you only have one chance to make a good first impression. Same is true with somebody's home.
Right.
So just a couple minor details on the single family. With automation, because we're in 2019, almost going into 2020.
Can't believe it's going so fast. The time.
Yep. And I believe that most people do not realize how important automation and the internet has completely overtaken the business in many regards. Why do I mention that? In the past, if public records were mistaken, it may not have a devastating effect on value. Where now, I would encourage anybody listening to your show, if you notice that the square footage of your home is in error, if you notice that the room count is in error, if you notice public records shows there's no swimming pool, but there is a swimming pool, anything that you see on public records, go through the effort of getting with the proper individuals, whether it's the city, the county, whomever, to make sure the public records are correct. And it may turn out to be very easily resolved. I've seen that where that's the case.
Right.
I've seen where it's been a headache and it's taken someone 6 months to a year to fix it. And I've seen in between.
Yeah.
But
I worked on one and actually got it solved, but
yeah,
the city called it a duplex and the county called it single family. So
right. And we're going to talk about in a minute here why this has a profound effect on property values today, profound versus 3, 5, 7, 10 years ago. We'll talk about that in just a minute.
Yeah, now there's also such a thing as realtors will want you to set up the home for a walkthrough or for an open house where they have professionals come in. We're not really talking about that, although that is possible also.
That's just a bonus.
Mm-hmm.
But what you and I are talking about today is what we're talking about is the foundational things. These are things that are absolutely required and should be taken very seriously. And then in the event that you're talking about, Jay, that a property is going to be sold, if it makes financial sense to have a home professionally staged, that could be discussed on a 1-by-1. But most properties, if they are as clean as a whistle and really beautifully presented as most people can do, that's going to get you 90% of the gain. And then everything else is kind of on a case-by-case basis.
Daryl, let me just throw in for a second there that if any listeners or anybody watching wants to know what is on public record, no private information, just what's on private record as far as, how many rooms, square feet, this, that, and whatever, Daryl or I can get that for you. Just call up, email, or do whatever. And we'd be happy to get that to you. And of course, most realtors probably could, lenders, that kind of thing, which leads me directly, Daryl, to how do people get a hold of you? Because Daryl is in the real estate business. He does different types of loans. He's a good guy and an absolute, he's a mountain of information.
Well, I appreciate those kind words, Jay.
You gave me 50 cents before.
I know, thank you. So, just Daryl McCants, phone number 310-400-9209, 310-400-9209. And again, I'm a broker, Daryl McCants. Now, Jay, just to finish up on the public records, again, Jay or myself would be more than happy to help somebody try to get those to show accurately. It can be involved, but if you start down the right track, it's very, very rewarding when that's completed. So moving on to condominiums, townhouses, condominiums, what's nice about that is normally the public records are correct. Square footage, room count. It's pretty rare that those are wrong. It could happen. But it's rare. On single families, it's very common, very common. So on condominiums, what is really important is, again, have the condition of the inside to the extent possible, ready for inspection. Also, any improvements that have been made, documented, be prepared to hand those over, copies of whatever documentation for improvements. Understand the CC&Rs, the homeowner association, have a current statement from the homeowner association that shows what the monthly amount is. If possible, make a photocopy of the page in your homeowner association that says what it covers. Because when you're getting an inspection from an appraiser, or somebody that's interested in the property, the more you can educate them and bring to their attention things that are unique and valuable. So from one condominium to another, you may have one development where something is paid for by the association, but you go right down the street and there's another development where it's not. So
right.
if you own the condominium where there's a really nice benefit, it's up to that property owner to make sure that that's known to whoever's doing an inspection on the property. The other thing that's important to know is that property Fannie Mae approved, Freddie Mac approved, FHA approved, any third-party agencies that have been out there and inspected it. If it's been approved by those, it's very important for you to know it and to share it with anybody that may be inspecting the property. If there's any legal problems going on within a development, it's a property owner's, it's very advisable that the individual that owns a condominium be very familiar. Call the property management company. If there's a lawsuit and it's just about to be finished up in a month or two, that's important to know, because that's a lot different than a lawsuit just started. If the lawsuit is over something very small and the insurance company's covering it, and it's just a lawsuit over whether they painted something, brown versus green, that's small compared to, something that might be bigger. So it's very important to know those things so that you can accurately communicate to a third party. And then the third group, Jay, is planned unit developments. And what's fun about planned unit developments is we don't have to really talk about it, because everything that we talked about with single family and everything we talked about with condominium and townhomes all apply to a PUD. Because
now I live in a PUD.
Right.
It looks like a single family home. There are no shared walls. It's simply a PUD because it was set up that way by the builder, so that we own our own property. That's the thing. Some buildings that look like they are condominiums are not. They could be a PUD. Correct. With a condominium, everybody owns the community land, and you as an individual owner own the airspace inside your condominium. Even your own patio is owned by everybody. So invite them all over. But if there's someone above you or below you, that cannot be a condominium, because again, in a PUD, you own not only the airspace, you own the whole thing. You own the land under you. So if a condominium looks like a condominium complex and it's either all single stories or the second floor is just the second floor of the same unit, it could very well be a PUD. And the advantage of a PUD, I'll let you take over, Daryl, on that.
Well, what's neat about a PUD and a condominium and a single family is they all have all kinds of neat features. So one is not better than the other; they're just different. But to pick up on what Jay said, you have to really call a licensed professional, would be my advice. Someone like Jay or myself, and we can actually make some phone calls and report back whether it is a condominium, a PUD, because oftentimes when you drive by, they're virtually identical.
Right.
To look at them physically, but when we look at the legal documents that are public records, we know how to identify them. And there's attached PUDs and detached PUDs, and you can drive through a development and it looks like a bunch of single family homes, only to find out that it is a PUD. So the important thing is, anybody listening, it only matters what your property is.
Right, and what you plan to do with it, your plan.
Correct, and then we can share with you legally what it is.
Because if you're looking at an FHA loan, FHA refinance, Some, not all of the reverse mortgages, just the FHA types. The property itself needs to be FHA approved, which is not usually a big deal. But if it's a PUD, it does not need that at all. It's the same as a single family.
Right. So now let's kind of, as we're getting to the final chapter here, when it comes to the value of a property, there's a great cartoon. I'll forward it over to you. And you can put it on your on your web page. But the homeowner, they think the house is worth 3x.
Yeah.
And then the buyer of the home thinks the house is only worth 1x.
Yeah.
And the appraiser thinks it's worth 2x.
Uh-huh.
And so what a home is worth is often in the eye of the beholder. But on a serious note, there's three major categories when it comes to the type of opinion of value. One is a licensed professional, and that is a licensed appraiser, a licensed broker, which is what I am, or a salesperson. Those are the three common licenses that a property owner could reach out and get an opinion on value. And now add to that, we have what's called AVMs, automated value opportunities. And most people have heard of Zillow and Redfin and Trulia and Realtor.com. I will say that most things are worth exactly what you pay for. So if something is free, understand that it's exactly
one thing from what we just learned from you a few minutes ago. One thing, none of those services you just mentioned, none of them take into account condition.
Right, and most of them, they're big. It's a big generalization, and they don't know condition. They really even, where is it? As you know, Jay, and people listening,
right.
You can have a property on one side of the street and an identical property on the other side of the street, and they can have two very different values because of who actually originally built the home. Or one side of the street, the property owners might be keeping those properties in outstanding shape. The other side of the street, that group might be keeping them in much less overall condition. So there's more desirability to be on particular streets. So there's a lot of really important details regarding the actual physical property and the neighboring properties and any number of things. So the difference between having a licensed professional inspect the property versus something that's done that's on a free service is really night and day.
It's really night and day if you need to hang your hat on it for some kind of a sale. That's for sure.
Correct, and people are making very expensive mistakes often, and so it's very, very important to take the property and give it the respect that it deserves. And on all of these things that we've talked about, so far.
One quick thing before I forget, on account of my age, I forget things. I think I've said several times before, I do remember being in the crib, but 5 minutes ago, that's tough.
Right.
When we talked about condominiums and the fact that many of them need to be approved by HUD, you find a lot of condominium people don't want that for some reason. It's going to bring in too young a person or this or that. No, that's not true. To have it FHA approved means that it's kind of like having, and I learned this in a class, not my own, but I thought it was good. It's like having a good housekeeping seal of approval. Us oldies, we remember good housekeeping seal of approval. And, it's something that opens up and will give more value to the property.
Well, yeah, there's just no doubt about it. Anytime there's a third party um, uh,
Yeah.
review and approval, because it's a very involved process. It's an expensive process. It's a timely process. And as you mentioned, Jay, you're going to have any number of people that will enjoy the
Yeah,
FHA.
it's not a horrible process to go through, but they are going to check things to make sure that the construction was good when it started, it's still good, and the finances are being kept up to date and proper. So a new buyer, if they're buying a property that's FHA approved, whether it's an FHA loan or not, they know that that property, the physical property, and the homeowners association and the economics are all in good shape.
There's just no doubt about it. And of all the third party agencies that can come out and really do a good, like when you buy a car, you want a mechanic.
2 minutes. Can you understand? How fast that went by, right, Daryl?
That's amazing.
I know. When you're having fun.
Oh, yeah. When somebody goes and considering buying a car, there's no better idea than to have a mechanic check it out from bumper to bumper.
Yeah.
And likewise, I don't think anybody does a better job than the FHA of looking at, make sure that there's no legal issues, like you say, budgetary issues, all the finances are in order, and the physical characteristics of the property are within their guidelines, and the condition of the overall development is within their guidelines. So, yeah, I think that's a great place to wrap it up. And those are the things that I wish I would have been told long ago. And I think we've talked about the big items that I think.
Well, we've got a long way to go, so we can use that as we move forward.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, well, yeah, I think it's true, Jay. You and I clearly are in our prime.
And I think in your prime, you better, before we go off the air, give your contact information one more time.
Again, my name is Daryl McCants, and phone number 310-400-9209. Daryl McCants, broker, 310-400-9209. Happy to help anybody that is enjoying your.
And you just help them enjoy it that much more. So really, thank you, Daryl. Thank you, Sean. Couldn't do it without Sean, and there's no reason to do it without the listeners. So thank you most of all. So take care. Have yourselves a great weekend. And Kaplan will be here on the same corner in front of the cigar store next week.